Let me indicate the scope of my arguments, a broad overview of my arguments. And whenever your lordship wishes to go into the questions more deeply, I will assist your lordships. So the first question is, does the government have the power under Section 26 of the RBI Act to make the notification, which was eventually made on 8th of November? 8th of November. In my submission, the government does not have the power. This was realized way back in
Mr. Chidambran, before that,
Yes.
if you can give some sequence of events to understand better.
All right, I'll tell you.
Just a sequence, what happened on what day, just a few, you know.
Well, there are only 3 events to our knowledge, and none of the documents pertaining to those 3 events have been produced, which is one of my complaints, which I will address. According to the record, according to the counter affidavit, and according to what is available in the public domain,
Yes.
on the 7th of November 2016, government wrote a letter to the Reserve Bank of India asking for its recommendation whether 500 rupee note and 1000 rupee notes may be demonetized. The starting point, according to the record, is the letter from the government to the RBI. The RBI board, my lord, your lordship knows, consists of
What exactly is the query to the RBI? What exactly?
Please make a recommendation whether 500 rupee note and 1000 rupee notes may be declared as no longer legal tender.
That was
There is a letter from the government to the RBI. Much turns on that. On the 8th of November, the next day, the RBI did not take even 24 hours to consider the letter. The very next day, the RBI board meets in Delhi, not in Bombay. It meets in Delhi. The RBI board.
What is the significance? No, Bombay or Delhi. What is its significance?
Mr. Sharma, please maintain the decorum. Please maintain the decorum. No, please don't interrupt the proceedings like this.
Then there will be one side only. I'm not saying anything. I'm saying only all the
You are interfering in the administration of justice.
They are extending just for nothing. And all the advocates, they are not only one advocate, they are all advocates are sitting and trying to see the court proceedings. They are helpless. Somebody should say, somebody should request them to be one side, that I am requesting them to be one side. Nothing more than that.
Oh, please, just disturbing.
Then I should take the assistance of Mr. Sharma.
See, for your information, we can't see the attorney from here, for your information.
I'll keep standing, Your Lordship.
No.
On the screen we can see one.
On the screen. There is no screen on the other side? No.
There is a screen, but I don't know whether.
Oh, that is covered.
No, that side they have a smaller screen.
There is a small screen here. There is a screen here.
Anyway, they hear it's sufficient. They need not see faces. Okay.
All of you are hearing, no? The discussion, all of you are hearing. What will you do, old people, by seeing us? All 60 plus. No, I don't know. Sorry, it was wrong.
Let the document.
What will you do by seeing us?
Now that but everybody is standing over here.
by television.
Everybody is standing over
wants
here.
to see everything.
Okay. All right. Yes, Mr.
I want only the decorum to be made.
All right. Please take your seat.
Say all the advocates are telling just for nothing. He should
All
sit in back.
Now you can hear, see,
The best,
this is,
I will wear a mask and that will be a good decorum.
oh, all of your VC links also.
Yes.
Of course, televised also.
Yes.
So that's
They can.
that explains why.
But when there is no.
I didn't want to say anything.
Can't be helped. Yes,
No, Mr. Attorney, it means
And this is not the first time a constitution bench is heard. This is always like this, in the court,
no, Mr. Attorney, according to you, even if Sharma goes out, he can see the proceedings.
Yes.
Yes.
He can see the proceedings wherever he is.
On the phone.
Otherwise, if he is interested in seeing,
Wanted to get the BC reading, Your Lordship, I was declined and court martial say mention before the court. I'm not well. I'm not well.
All
I'm
right,
not well.
what you want, VC link is it? You want, right now we will provide. Please give it.
Yeah. If BC link is there, I have no objection. I will sit in my room and
he is not well,
Please.
he tested.
court master declined. I give you my, their reply to. I show my reply, Your Lordship, her reply.
Please give him the link, huh? Give him the link. Right now you give him the link. All right, it will be done right now. All right, now you take your seat. Right. Yes, Mr. Chair.
On 7th of November, the government writes to the RBI seeking its recommendation on whether 500 rupee note and 1000 rupee notes may be demonetized. On the 8th of November, less than 24 hours after the letter came, the RBI, which has its headquarters in Mumbai, its entire research staff, research department staff in Mumbai, does not meet in Mumbai, it meets in Delhi on the evening of 8th of November, according to information in the public domain. The RBI board, my lord, ought to consist of 10 independent directors under section 8(1)(c), but 7 slots were vacant on that day.
Please repeat, out of
10 independent directors under 8(1)(c) of the RBI Act,
Yes.
only 3 were in place, 7 were vacant. They had not filled it.
All right,
They had not appointed independent directors.
all right.
So the RBI board effectively consisted of the governor, the deputy governors, 4 deputy governors, 4 officers of the central government nominated to the central government, and under H1D, 2 government officials nominated to the central government, are believed to have met in Delhi and passed a resolution recommending 500 rupee and 1000 rupee notes may be demonetized. This was on 8th of November. That resolution or
This
recommendation,
was the statutory obligation, right?
well, actually the statutory obligation is the reverse. On the recommendation of the RBI, the government may demonetize.
Okay.
Here it started with the government writing a letter to the RBI. RBI recommendation is transmitted to the cabinet. According to the information in the public domain, the cabinet is already meeting and it's waiting in the cabinet room. This recommendation comes to the government and this recommendation is accepted, and within minutes of the recommendation being received by the government makes the notification of 8th of November. And the Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister, goes on television at about 8 p.m. to announce demonetization while his cabinet colleagues are waiting in the cabinet room. They were requested to wait in the cabinet room. Question is, my lord, my lady asked me a question. Is this the procedure contemplated in section 26? Assuming you're exercising your power bona fide under section 26, a matter so serious and so important as demonetization, which will effectively take away 86.4% of the currency, can it be decided in a matter of 24 hours? Between 7th November, when the letter is received by the RBI, the board meets in Delhi, it is transmitted to the cabinet, and cabinet instantaneously accepts it. What is the application of mine? Is this the procedure followed under 26? The first submission I'm making is this is a perverse reversal of the procedure. The suggestion should have emanated from the RBI with research, with facts, with figures, and the entire matter should have been placed before the RBI, and RBI board should have deliberated it and sent a detailed recommendation. Government should reflect on it, maybe a day, maybe 2. Government should reflect on it and pass such an order. All this was done in 24 hours. Now, my lord, our allegation is,
Mr. Chidambran,
Yes.
I don't know. But all these things have to be done in a super secretive manner because it should not leak all these.
of course you can do it. Of course you
I
can
don't know
do
what
it.
you said, it should be deliberated for long and all.
Board has to deliberate.
Huh?
Where did the board? Therefore, what we are asking is, the letter of 7th November is not placed on record. the agenda note for the board meeting is not placed on record. The actual resolution of the RBI recommending on 8th of November is not placed on record. We are now witnessing the Hamlet without the Prince of Denmark. Where is the 7th November letter of the government? Where is the agenda note for the board? Let us see what was disclosed in the agenda note. Did they disclose to the board that by demonetizing 500 rupee note and 1000 rupee note, 15,44,000 crore worth of currency will be withdrawn, which represents 86.4% of the total currency in circulation? There was this incorporated in the government, in the RBI recommendation. Did the cabinet know that 86.4% of the currency will be withdrawn? Well, I can't imagine responsible cabinet ministers approving something which withdraws 86.4% of the currency overnight. Therefore, let us have those. We don't have those documents. The counter does not disclose those documents. It's not attached. Therefore, my lord, the first question is this
Out of that currency, 98 point, I think.
only, my lord, 15,44,000 crore worth of currency was demonetized. 15 lakh, I'll tell you, give the exact number.
So what is not demonetized is, I think, between
15 lakh.
1 and 2%.
Yeah, about little fraction more than one. Just a moment, please. Please, you want to answer one? Fraction more than 1% did not return. And in court number 1, the then Attorney General told Chief Justice Thakur's bench, we expect that 3 lakh crore will not be returned, and that will be extinguished from the liability side of the RBI's balance sheet. It will be taken as RBI's profit, and government will get a dividend on the profit. In fact, the entire profit will be transferred to the government. 3 lakh crore. Later, in later hearing, the number was increased to 4 lakh crore. Government will get a bonanza of 4 lakh crore. As my friend Sham said, eventually only about 16,000 crore out of 15,44,000 crore was not returned. And that not returned could be the currency note has been destroyed, lost, washed away in flood, spoiled, or like him, he was abroad, he couldn't exchange it. 16,000 crore out of 15,44,000 crore. Effectively, my lord, every note was exchanged. And of the notes exchanged with the RBI, RBI's annual report says that only 0.0027% of individual currency notes were found to be fake notes. 0.0027% was found to be fake. Every note that had been returned had been accounted for by the RBI. The annual report is there. We will place all that. Therefore, Mullah, the first question is this the way a decision can be taken? Is this a reasonable, prudent decision-making process that you withdraw 86.4% of the currency in 24 hours and don't place those documents in the public domain? Milord, we have asked for these documents. These documents have never been placed in the public domain. 7th November, 8th November agenda note, and 8th November recommendation. That's the first question. The second question is, does Section 26 give you the power to do this kind of demonetization? If Section 26 gave you the power, then why in 1946 and 1978 did you have to pass a separate law?
Mr. Chidambran, before going into the legalities, as you understand, because you are a man with great experience.
No, I don't think it.
Generally, what are the objects of this type of demonetization?
They have said three things. Well, the objects of demonetization are rather simple. That is 46 and 78. Currency notes not in use should be taken out of the system because it adds to the liability side on the balance sheet. Well, every currency note issued is a liability of the RBI. That's why your lordship will see that I promise to pay to the bearer of this note 100 rupees, the governor signs it. It's a liability side. if the liabilities keep mounting by unused or unusable or disused currency, the liability side keeps on increasing. So the liabilities extinguished by demonetization. That is one object, which is a well-recognized object. The other situation in which demonetization resorted to is when there is hyperinflation and your currency becomes worthless. For example, Millard, in some Latin American countries, they are issuing the currency, Argentina, earlier in Zimbabwe, the currency became worthless. Even a 100,000 rupee currency note could not buy you even a cup of coffee. So it's completely worthless currency. You demonetize it. You demonetize it and replace it by new currency. That for every 100 rupee now we will give you a 100 rupee note. That is a legitimate objective because of external factors, domestic factors. Your currency has become practically worthless. You will now completely replenish the currency. That is the second objective. Well, these are the two objectives, as far as I know. Disused, unused, unusable currency to be taken out of the system and the balance sheet to be extinguished of the RBI. Second is worthless currency to be replaced by currency with worth. Well, the Lordship
What
knows.
about black money and terror funding?
That is what they, now we come to that. They are saying fake currency, one, black money, and fake currency used for terror funding. These are the three objectives mentioned in the notification. We'll take your Lordship through that. But the fake currency eventually turned out to be 0.0027.
Negligible.
I mean, infinitesimal, absolutely negligible. The second then one they said is, they added corruption later, but the notification only mentioned black money. Let's assume black money is the... Now, black money, now we've got data, we trace that. Within weeks, days and weeks of this demonetization, Income Tax Department, DRI, seized unaccounted money in 2,000 rupee notes, the new 2,000 rupee notes. If I want to hold black money, nothing prevents me from storing it in 2,000 rupee note rather than 500 rupee note. Millard, the three purposes of currency are well known, Millard. Many of your lordships may have been economics graduates. Three purposes of currency is, one is store of value. The RBI says this paper has a value of 100 rupees, the store of value. Other is unit of account, because I have to maintain accounts. I need to know what is my income, what's my expenditure. I have to maintain accounts in some way. So I maintain account in currency by saying I have 1,000 rupees in cash. I have 10,000 rupees in a bank. And the third is medium of exchange. Before currency came, it was barter. Instead of bartering A for B, we now put a value, and that is the value, and the currency mediates the transaction between the giver and the taker. These are the three purposes of currency. Now take the first one, store of value. What they say is you are storing value in an unaccounted money in 500 and 1,000 rupee notes. Therefore, we're going to cancel them. If you had eventually achieved your objective of getting that currency cancelled, it is neither returned or you, if it's in your hand, after 30th of December, you can do nothing about it. It becomes a worthless piece of paper. But if you issue a 2,000 rupee note, in fact, it's easier for me to store value in a 2,000 rupee note than in a 500 and 1,000 rupee note. What I would require 4 500 rupee notes or 2 1,000 rupee notes, I'm storing my value in 2,000 rupee notes. So when the DRI and income tax conducted searches and raids, they found unaccounted money in 2,000 rupee notes. So whether that objective is achieved or not, they may have genuinely believed that the objective will be achieved. Then on fake currency, within weeks, and I'll give you the dates and places, in Bandipur, 2 terrorists were killed, and on them, on the bodies of the terrorists, they found 2,000 rupee notes. They also found fake currency. So fake currency, fake 2,000 rupee notes. And the third one, my lord, the fake 2,000 rupee notes started surfacing within months. Because technology is neutral, Mala. If the government can get the technology, the counterfeiter can also get the technology. So it is a different matter that according to us, none of the objectives were achieved, but that may be outside the purview of judicial review, whether the objective was achieved. The point I'm making is, in order to achieve these objectives, was this the method? Did you examine alternative methods? And I will cite the judgments of Justice Chandrachud and Justice Ramasubramaniam for the benches, that you are obliged to examine alternative methods of dealing with it. And after examining the alternative methods, you can arrive at a method. Here, did the board examine it? Did the government examine it? Did the government spell out the various methods of dealing with this menace? Did the RBI board address it itself? According to us, nothing was there was no agenda note. We want to see the agenda note before the board. What was disclosed to the board? Well, according to my information, it was not disclosed to the board that by demonetizing 500 and 1,000 rupee notes, 86.4% of the currency will be withdrawn. Well, no prudent cabinet minister, no prudent board member will ever agree to 86.4% of the currency being withdrawn from circulation. Anyway, so the second question is, first was the procedure. Second is, does the Act give you the power? If this power was there, why do the 1946 Act and the 1978 Act, the second question, start with the word, notwithstanding anything contained in section 26, we are passing this law. Because in 46 and 78 at least, Parliament felt this power was not there in 26. This kind of demonetization, the power was not there in 26. And therefore, kindly see the 78 Act, Mother. Now kindly see the 1978 Act. Kindly see section 3. On the expiry of the 16th day of January, all high denomination banknotes shall, notwithstanding anything contained in section 26, cease to be legal tender. Why did they put the words notwithstanding anything contained in section 26? Similarly, my lord, the 1946 Act, section 3, on the expiry of 12th day of January, notwithstanding anything contained in section 26. Therefore, my lord, these are indications how Parliament viewed its power. Now you exercise the power under 26 without a parliamentary law, without a debate in Parliament. If it's earlier, you had to find another legal peg on which to do demonetization, notwithstanding anything in 26. Can you exercise this? Does this power flow under 26? Our submission will be that this power is not available in 26. This power is not available. That is the second submission. The third main submission, the Lord, will be that the objectives that you set up were false objectives. These objectives could never be achieved by this kind of a notification. I agree, Miller. The scope of judicial review on that ground will be limited, but we still, within the limited scope of judicial review, whether a government can set up false objectives and pass such a law. The fourth ground will be proportionality. ₹15,44,000 crore by value, equal to 86.4% of the currency in circulation, was withdrawn overnight leading to horrendous consequences. Horrendous consequences.
You said 86.4%.
Yes. In terms of the value, 2,300 crore individual notes, discrete notes, 2,300 crore notes, 500 and 1,000, the 2,300 crore notes. The value was 15,44,000 crore. And as a proportion of the total currency in circulation, it is 86.4%. That was withdrawn overnight. And the horrendous consequences, your lordships may have said, many families were simply without money. 11 crore people stood in a queue every day to change their money. District cooperative banks were not allowed to receive deposits or exchange notes. The entire farming community was completely at a loss. It was a sowing season, November, sowing season. They did not have money to buy fertilizer, seeds, or hire labor. Wholesale markets were shut down. Prices crashed. Now we have the data. Prices crashed. Weekly fairs in villages stopped. Retail outlets reported a calamitous drop in sales. Industrial hubs came to a halt. Wages were not paid. And casual labor, 33% of all employed persons, amounting to 15 crore, are casual labor, daily labor. They were without work or without income. And the promise they made that 24,000 crore will be allowed to be withdrawn was not honored. Was not honored. That's the Chief Justice Thakur's order records that and tells them you do your best. This kind of horrendous consequences were they envisaged or contemplated by the RBI board or the government or the cabinet. Did they know these consequences will happen if you withdraw such a large amount from currency in circulation? So is it a proportional way? Is it a proportional measure to achieve even the objectives that you set out for yourself? That is the next. The next ground is arising out of 26.
Mr. Chidambran, one question.
Yes.
Supposing instead of 86.4%, suppose if they have withdrawn 40%, what would have happened? You had this argument, you would have...
No, this argument of proportionality will be a weaker argument. I concede that. It will be a weaker argument. The argument will remain. Depends on what notes they withdraw. Well, my personal view is somebody did not even know what notes are largely in use. Somebody belonging to the ages thought that 5 rupee and 10 rupee and 20 rupee notes are the ones currently in use. That's not so. It changed long ago. The notes in circulation, which people use every day, the bulk, the overwhelming bulk was 500 and 1,000. Overwhelming proportion was 86.4 was 500 and 1,000. You don't withdraw 500 and 1,000. If you had, say, demonetized only the 1,000 rupee note, maybe the impact would have been much less. But if you demonetize 500 and 1,000, thinking that these are scarce notes, only very rich people have, it's completely wrong, Miller. Ordinary
2,000 rupee notes have not withdrawn.
2,000 were issued for the first time.
Issued.
Which leads to the next round.
Introduced.
Now, my lord.
See the proportionality argument will have to be seen in the context of the justification for this policy.
Yes. And if
Every
the
time it
justification failed.
No, therefore, objectively, it has to be seen in the context of the justification.
Absolutely.
Not solely on its own basis.
Absolutely, my lord. Even if you're placing burden on the people, if by doing this drastic step, if you are achieving your objectives, they may just defend it. But the objectives were not achieved. As I am pointing out to your lordship, 0.002% of the notes were found fake, and the black money shifted to 2,000 rupee notes. So the two objectives were not achieved. They added another objective.
They didn't do this when they banned this, only thereafter.
No, according to me, you should think through that is why there's a board. That is why section 26 says the board must recommend, not the government issues a command to the board. Will you recommend? And the board recommends within 24 hours. Well, let us see the
What you
agenda.
are suggesting is the experts should deliberate.
There is enormous research on demonetization. There is enormous research on the impact of black money. There is enormous research on faking. The most counterfeited note, I know, most counterfeited note in the world is the US $1. But they don't care. They say, we are the reserve currency. What does it matter whether somebody counterfeits the note or not? Eventually, you will deposit it in our banks. So we don't care. They don't take any action against the $1 note which is being counterfeited. If counterfeiting was such a serious problem, as my lady says, and you want to achieve it by demobilizing or demonetizing 86.4, then show that it has achieved the objective. No, the question really is not for your lordship to ask, if I may say with respect, did they achieve the objective? Did the RBI deliberate on this objective and then make a recommendation? Did the RBI deliberate on this objective and then make the recommendation? If you meet within less than 24 hours without an agenda note, without research papers, what would you have deliberated? And how is I asked myself, this may not be an entirely legal question. How is the cabinet waiting to receive the recommendation, and the recommendation is received and it immediately approves it? Should not the government deliberate? Should there not be a cabinet note based on the recommendation? I want to see the cabinet note. It should be placed before your lordship. Suppose there's a draft cabinet note, but how do you know what the recommendation will be? Suppose the recommendation was negative. Suppose the recommendation said you can only demonetize 1,000 rupee note and not 500 rupee note. You have to amend your cabinet note. Was the cabinet note amended? Well, nothing of that sort happened. So let them place these documents. Well, the other question that arises out of 26 is, if the 26 is conferring the power to demonetize up to 100%. Let's take an extreme case. Then should it not have some guidelines? Does 26 have any guideline? There is no guideline in 26. So you can demonetize 5%, you can demonetize even 99.9%. Where are the guidelines in 26? Therefore, we are challenging. We are saying read down 26. Read down 26 strictly to say only the government.
Let us read 26 first. Let us read 26.
Please read 26.
So can't it be argued that there is an inbuilt safeguard in 26 too? Because the power by the central government can be exercised only on the recommendation of the central government.
Correct. Precisely, that's my argument. The proposal must be initiated by the RBI. Please see 26.
Yes.
Now, what happens to a case with where the RBI does not initiate a proposal? Then should the government keep quiet?
No, RBI can initiate, because our government has, kindly see the section, composition of the
On
board
the
in
recommendation.
Section 8. Section 8, the government has its directors there. 8.1b and 8.1d are government directors. 8.1b, 4 directors to be nominated by the central government. And then 8.1d, 2 government officials to be nominated by the central government. The Secretary Economic Affairs is nominated under 8.1d on the board.
But no recommendation comes from the RBI. Then what happens?
No
The government
then
hold
they
its
should-
hands and keep quiet?
No, it does not have to hold that. It must ask its directors to place it on the RBI board agenda, have a discussion, let the government, the RBI board take a decision. That decision must be transmitted to the government. Then the government at the highest level will call the governor and discuss, listen, this is what we want to do, and this is what your decision of the board is. Please reconsider your decision. See, it's not, government is not helpless, my lord. After all, the governor is not appointed by the RBI. The deputy governors are appointed by the RBI. They are not, my lord, completely alien to the thinking of the government or the needs of the government. But it must be discussed first in the RBI board before a proposal is initiated. Here a command, virtual command comes and you pass a resolution in 24 hours. Well, at some time, some stage, your lordship has to look into these documents. Now look at 26. My lord, Justice Nazir asked, please look at 26.
Yes.
On recommendation of the Central Board, by notification, declare that with effect from such date as may be specified, any series of bank notes of any denomination shall cease to be legal tender. Now, if you have the power under 26(2) to declare nearly 100% of currency in circulation as illegal tender, no longer legal tender, should not Parliament have built some guidelines and some principles shall have regard to or shall not have regard to? Some guideline should be there. So this section ought to be read down. And I'll tell you, Lordship, why what we will argue should be read down. It should be read down to mean any series of banknotes means, that's how they understood it in 46 and 78, 1946 and 1978. Any series of banknotes means of any denomination, not all series of the same denomination. Any means any series, not all. Normally, any includes all. But if you read any as all, where we have now the Mahatma Gandhi new series. Earlier we had the Mahatma Gandhi series. Earlier we had the King George whatever series. Any series is read as all series of banknotes of 500 and 1,000 denomination. If you read it that way, then this is an extraordinary power without guidelines. So any series must be read as any particular series of banknotes of that denomination. That's a submission. We will develop it. That is why, since they wanted to demonetize all series whenever issued of 10,000 and 5,000, they had to pass a separate law. So if you wanted to demonetize all series of 500 and 1,000, you should have had a separate law. And Parliament should have debated it. You can't invoke 26(2). With 26(2), if you invoke and that power is there, please don't, Millard, interpret 26(2) to convey that power. Who knows, Millard, today the government has done 86. Who knows, another government.
Chidambran, are you suggesting there is no law at all for demonetization?
There is
As of now.
there is no 26(2) ought to be read down. 26(2) does not give the power to demonetize all the series of one denomination.
No, there is one problem, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
See, section 26(2).
Yes.
First of all, we have our own doubts whether we can really call it a case of demonetization, because if you carefully read 26(2), it says, on recommendation of the Central Board, the central government may by notification to the Gazette of India declare that so and so shall cease to be legal tender.
Yes.
Not at all places and not at all times, save at such office or agency of the bank, and to such extent as may be specified in the notification. Therefore, this case is not exactly a case of total demonetization as it happened in the case of 1946 and 1978.
No, well, it's exactly the same. They exchange the notes.
The notification at page 33 of the compilation given by Mr. Diwan,
Yes.
it says the notes can be exchanged.
Yes.
Windows are open
Yes.
at such places and to such extent.
But the same thing was done in the 1946 and 78
That was
by the Act itself.
by the Act itself.
Yes.
Therefore, here the power of the RBI is regulated to say that you can declare it as no legal tender,
Except.
save at such office and to some extent.
But the same thing was done in 46 and 78.
That's right.
Section 7.
In fact, they could have done that, and when they are doing it under parliamentary enactment, they could have done it totally.
Yes. No, but they did not.
That's right.
They did the same kind of demonetization. Demonetized the specified notes, but gave a window for exchange. Both in 46 and 7.
That was provided by the Act itself. Here, when you talk of the lack of power of the RBI, on the ground that there are no guidelines, the provision itself says you have a limited power to say that it cease to be a legal tender, save at such office and to such extent. So These are the two guiding factors for
That is an absolute discretion of the RBI. Look, there's no guidelines for that. This is our complaint. If you had passed a separate law where you demonetize a particular denomination and provide a window for exchange of notes, and that is debated in Parliament, and Parliament passes the law, there has been an application of mind to what extent you will demonetize and to what extent you will provide for an exchange. So that is why a separate law was felt necessary in 46 and 78. If you can do that on the 26-2, why did they have to have a separate law?
At the time of 1946 Act, this amendment save at such office and to such extent was
No,
not
Malad,
made.
that was the same language. Look at the footnote, Malad. It's just slight change in language. Look at 3, save at an office or agency of the bank. So
That's
that
all.
saving was always there.
To such extent was
Such
not.
extent was not there, but the saving provision, they could have done it to a large extent or a small extent.
Not a case of complete lack of power.
Anyway, my lord, in 1978, this amendment had already come, the saved and to the extent has come. My lord, Parliament thought, and according to me rightly, that 26(2) does not give you this power. This power in 26(2) is to only demonetize a particular series of notes of a denomination, not all series of a denomination.
But it is by a notification in the Gazette of India.
That is the saving part. Notification of the Gazette of India, by notification you will specify the note
Yes.
on the recommendation of the RBI, but the power is the power to notify all series of a denomination or any particular series of a denomination. Our submission will be, for your lordship's consideration, it is only a particular series of a denomination, not all series of a denomination.
But it is not necessary that there should be a legislation for it.
Milord,
Because here it says by notification in the
if
Gazette.
you want to demonetize all series of a denomination, and if 26(2) does not give you the power, in my way of looking at it,
As may be specified in the notification, any series of banknotes of any denomination. What do you mean by that?
that means, according to me, you must read it to me, any particular series of banknotes of any denomination, not all series of notes of 500 denominations.
No, that
Any particular series, suppose a series was issued in 1950 and you want to demonetize it, you can demonetize. But you can't demonetize notes were issued day before yesterday.
Mr.
They
Chidambran,
demonetized notes issued even the previous week. You know, the printing presses print 300 crore notes a month, which is roughly about 10 crore notes a day. It works round the clock. So even yesterday notes were issued, that is demonetized in 500 and 1,000. Does that power there, your lordship will have interpreted, if 26(2) gives you that power, according to me, it does not give you the power. If your lordship interprets it to mean any means all series, then I would argue then there are no guidelines when you can demonetize all series of a denomination. You must have some guidelines for that.
that depends on the economic wisdom, the wisdom of the powers that be,
Oh, my lord.
and the situation as it develops.
Precisely.
There may be a financial emergency. There may be cases
Precisely.
where the government
Precisely,
have to act.
guidelines, Parliament then should say, shall have regard to 1, 2, 3, 4. The economic situation of the country, financial emergency declared, the proportion of currency that will be withdrawn. Look, that is the most important part of demonetization. What is the proposal? Suppose the guideline said, shall not withdraw more than 50% of the currency in circulation at any given time. That's a guideline. Yeah, you have no guideline, you can withdraw 100% of the currency in circulation, which is why, my lord, they thought in 46 and 78, this does not give me the power to declare all series of 10,000 rupee note as no longer legal tender. I have to pass a separate law. Now, please see the denominations that were demonetized in 46 and 78.
Just 1 second.
Please, Millard.
They were withdrawn through under section 26.
Yes.
And you had the liberty to exchange. Maybe there were some hardship, we understand, but you had the liberty to immediately exchange. Maybe there are some
Hard cases.
hardship. Of course, you have to stand in queue and all. We understand that is in practice, but on testing your argument,
Millard,
testing your argument. That's all.
Millard, no demonetization is not followed by remonetization. Otherwise, the country will come to a grinding halt. So demonetization has
Yes,
demonetization is always followed by remonetization.
remonetization.
That remonetization. Because otherwise the country will come to a halt, Millard.
If that is so, there were some hardship. We know all of
I'm answering that.
Uh-huh.
Now, when you 46 and 78, when you demonetized 10,000 rupee notes and 5,000 rupee notes, there was a very small proportion. Even then, they provided for exchange. Even that note was exchanged. A very small proportion of notes was withdrawn, but they had a window for exchange within a particular time. There was no need to do any massive remonetization because the other currency notes were in circulation, 1,500, 150. Today, you've withdrawn 86.4%. At least you know now you've withdrawn 86.4%. You should remonetize it. You should have equivalent currency notes so that it can be exchanged. They did not have 1,000 rupee notes because they did not print 1,000 rupee notes. They said, in fact, they passed an order discontinuing 1,000 rupee notes under section 24. So no 1,000 rupee notes. Even today, there are no 1,000 rupee notes. They only remonetized through 500 rupee note and 2,000 rupee notes. We will show the numbers. The 2,000 rupee notes were alone printed in the first phase. 500 rupee note was printed later. Unfortunately, two things happened in the 2,000 rupee note. The ATMs had been calibrated to receive only 50, 100, 500 and 1,000. ATMs were not calibrated to receive or stack or dispense 2,000 rupee notes. So the entire ATMs had to be recalibrated. And I have the numbers of the number of ATMs in the country which had to be recalibrated. That took more than a month, number one. Secondly, my lord, the 500 rupee notes, as I told your lordship, 300 crore is the capacity of the printing press. Discrete notes, 300 crore notes. You have withdrawn 2,300 crore notes. Simple arithmetic tells you, even for note, if you were substituting, it will take you 7 months to remonetize so that the currency will be available for somebody who will exchange, which is why nobody could exchange it. They were, apart from the legal limit of exchange, there was a practical limit of exchange. The shutter will come down in 2 hours. Your lordship saw the visuals on television. The bank officer will come at 11 o'clock and say, no more currency notes today, come tomorrow. Because they did not have enough currency. Remonetization took several months. And then they recalibrated the ATMs. Apart from this, there's other practical difficulty. What is the geographical distribution of the bank branches and what is the geographical distribution of the ATMs? I will place the numbers before your lordship. The geographical distribution in a state like Tamil Nadu or Karnataka, you can access a bank branch within 3 kilometers, maybe 4 kilometers. In Bihar and in the Northeast, it's 12 kilometers and 15 kilometers to access a brick and mortar bank branch. And the ATMs, I will place the numbers state-wise what the ATMs were at that time. There were hardly any ATMs in the Northeast. They had to trek 13, 14 kilometers to exchange their money. Therefore, Miller, all this I'm asking is part of the decision-making process. Did you apply your mind? Let us see the agenda note, Miller. Let us see the resolution. Therefore, the way to read it is 26(2) does not give you the power for wholesale demonetization. It only gives, my submission, Lordship consider, my submission is it gives you the power only to demonetize any particular series of denomination If you wanted to do all series of a denomination, well, denomination is the 500 and 1000. Series is, your lordship will take a currency note. It has a letter and then a number. That is the series. And it's called now it's called Mahatma Gandhi New Series. The earlier note was, this is the Mahatma Gandhi New Series, 9MS574043. This is the series by which it is issued. If you demonetize all the currency notes issued ever since currency notes started in 500, does that power flow from 26.2? If that power flows from 26.2, I'm saying it is unconstitutional because it violates Article 14. There are no guidelines. So either read it down or strike it down. And there's a way to read it down. Read it down to mean any series, mean any particular series. If you want to do all series of a denomination, pass a separate law, like in 46 and 78. Well, at 46 at least is pre-constitution, but 78 is post-constitution. Article 14, Article 13 will apply. So the 26.2, if it is read that way, it has to be struck down as all series of a denomination. Well, I would humbly request that the government should not have the power under 26.2 to declare all series of a denomination as no longer legal tender. That will be a drastic power, drastic power. Therefore, read it down. But if you don't want to read it, I mean, if the government wants to still, let's pass a separate law. The separate law will be debated and they will decide whether such a law should be passed or not. It's a different matter. The validity of that law can also be challenged, but at least a separate law where the government comes forward and says, I am demonetizing all the series of 10,000 rupee notes, all the series whenever it is issued, 50, 60, 70 or 5,000 rupee notes. But here you demonetize the note issued the previous day. Why did you issue the note on the 7th of November and demonetize on the 8th of November? What purpose? Why did you issue the note in the first place? And this is note issue, 500 rupee note came several years ago. All the series have been demonetized. This is the alternative submission. This power is not available in 26.2. If the power is available, we are challenging the section as unguided, uncanalized power and violative of Article 14. Well, the next broad ground is that did you actually declare any note as illegal tender? Proof of the pudding is the eating. Governor says, and I quote, the withdrawal of legal tender status did not extinguish any of RBI's balance sheet liabilities. So, which means all the notes came back. So the liability still.
Before you go into that question, before that legal, one query, Mr.
Please,
Number. Now, all right, they have demonetized 86% so and so. Now, under which law this exchange is permitted? They have not, it is not a loss to you as such. It is not a loss, as we said earlier. There was, you could have exchanged it.
Yes. I'm
No,
not
no.
denying that.
If you test from this angle, how do you say it is bad?
Miller,
No, please tell us.
I say it is bad. Some individuals suffered monetary loss. Shyamdevan's client. Because if you don't exchange that 1,62,000,
That we can always set, right? That's all right. On a legal.
No. Therefore, there could be cases where persons actually suffered a monetary loss. But the vast majority of the people, if they were able to exchange the note within the window provided, there was no monetary loss. I concede that.
Yes.
There was no monetary loss.
There is no monetary loss. Then what?
There was no monetary
What
loss.
follows?
But what about the non-monetary hardships? People lost their wages. People lost their income. Families went without meals. They could not buy medicines. 100 people died in the queues. Over the period of time by people standing in queues, 100 people died in queues. For the non-monetary loss, we say you should have contemplated all this and applied your mind and taken into account all this before you did all series of 500, all series of 1,000. There is no there's no monetary loss for the bulk of the people. But if I lost my job, if the small unit closed down, several units closed down, if prices crashed, Miral, I can show you the prices in the wholesale market on the 7th of November and 1 week later. Prices of all farm products crash. And therefore, if I bring it to the market on that day and I sell it at a lower price, I suffer a monetary loss. What about the fruit vendor, flower seller who doesn't sell for several days? There is a monetary loss. There is no monetary loss in the sense that note for note, there is no loss. But there is a monetary loss in the sense that I've lost my job, I've lost my income, I've lost my wages. I can't buy fertilizer in time, I can't buy seeds in time, I can't hire
So
a
according to you, what should they have done?
What they should have done is they should have only demonetized specific series of 500 rupee notes and 1,000 rupee notes, not the note issued the previous day. If they wanted to demonetize the entire one, they should have kept exchange notes ready, enough notes ready, so that remonetization will take place in 1 week. In fact, the then finance minister, made a public statement. All your worries will be over by 15th of November. It's there in the record, 15th of November. He gave himself 1 week.
But
You should have had cash ready so that the moment a person's note is demonetized, he can go and exchange it. So your ATM was not in a position to dispense the notes, Miller.
no, we understand this hardship faced by the common man. But when we are testing the hardship, can it have a bearing on the constitutional validity of the action?
On proportional. Hardship
is
for the purpose of proportionality to decide.
consequence of a legislation would cause hardship to a section of the people, and no doubt here almost the entire populace was affected. But can that have a bearing on the constitutional validity of the
Not
action?
directly. Hardship will be taken into account to decide proportionality of this measure. Your Lordship, I'll read the judgments on proportionality. Proportionality, your Lordship said, livelihood has to be a factor taken into account. Article 21. Now, people have lost jobs, lost incomes. Therefore, my Lord, proportionality, you should have been prepared. If my Lord Justice Naziz rightly says, if I may say with respect, note for note you exchange it. Aladdin Miller, new lamps for old, new notes for old. You exchange it immediately, there's no problem. You didn't exchange it, no? You did not exchange it, you were unprepared. You did not even know how many notes you required. Your capacity of the printing press is 300 crore notes. You have demonetized 2,300 crore note. Simple arithmetic will tell you it will take you 8 months. Did you print enough currency and kept it in reserve before you demonetized? Therefore, proportionality. Did they apply? Well, the most important thing is, was a decision taken rationally after considering all the facts? Let us see the documents, Milord. We are arguing, Milord, blind.
The language employed is 26(2) is on the recommendation of the RBI.
Correct.
So while making the recommendation, they did not apply the amendment for all these consequences. Yes. This is what you are suggesting.
Yes. And the counter says, government advised the RBI to make a recommendation. The word used is advised.
But the initiation should be by the RBI.
That is our submission. Initiation can only be with the RBI. If the government wants to put its point of view to the RBI, it can do so in the board. It has 6 people on the board. You start it in the RBI. You ask your nominee to the Secretary Economic Affairs to go and tell the RBI board, listen, we have to consider demonetization for the following reasons. Let there be a research paper. Let there be a agenda paper. Let the board decide. And then you make a recommendation. You advise on the 7th of November evening and the 8th of November. The word used in paragraph 32. The government of India, therefore, on 7/11/2016, advised the Reserve Bank that to mitigate the triple problems of counterfeiting, terrorist financing, and black money, the Central Board of the Reserve Bank may consider withdrawal of the legal tender status of 500 and 1,000. So what are you advising the RBI? RBI is the monetary authority, the only authority which can issue. Then the Central Board of the Reserve Bank, 33, met on 8/11 to consider the government's advice. It is not even a request, Miller.
It should be other way around.
It should be the other way around. RBI must advise the government, not government advising the RBI. That is how the problems arisen, Miller. My ladies' questions would have all been answered if they had a comprehensive agenda paper spelling out all the pros and cons of demonetization, spelling out these numbers, how many notes will be affected, what proportion by value, what proportion by discrete note, what is our capacity of our printing presses, how long will it take to remonetize, how will we exchange it, are our ATMs ready, are our bank branches ready, what about places where there are no bank branches, there are no ATMs, all this should be considered. Nothing was considered according to me. Nothing was considered. No, let them satisfy your lordship. All this was considered. They don't produce, Miller, the three documents must be called for at some stage. 7/11, 8/11, the agenda paper and the 8/11. These must come before your lordship. Your lordship is the highest court in the country. If you don't look at 7/11, the agenda paper and 8/11, then who will look into it, Miller? They are not showing it to Parliament. They have not placed it before Parliament. They have not placed it in the public domain. At least to the Supreme Court, they should show these papers and documents. Therefore, my lord, there are serious issues to be argued. Clearly, my lord, we can't be stopped at the threshold.
All right, we will continue at 2:02.
Very well.
But they also know the law relating to adverse inference.